like a little place on the extreme Yorkshire East Coast called Roos, RWS, various places they can, but of course, since I'm always very conscious of my position, as I say, I can remember a position which where the window was when I'm writing a lot of places I've lived in, of course, are connected with the very family in my mind with the story.
Mae'Govannen, and in this edition of the Gentle Musings of an Elven Scholar, I wanted to discuss a small continuation to a video I did a couple of weeks ago on the division inside of the Elven community. I discussed a little bit about how so many within the community tend to attack each other, to taunt and to make fun of, to take such a strong stand on their position versus someone else's. So today I'm going to do a very short video on a continuation of that. And as you can see from the silly title, I played with words a little bit. The silly title of this one is The Religionizing of Tolkien. So we're going to talk about that for a few minutes. But I also want to just make a quick note before I go on here that I'm still planning on this weekend doing chapter 2 of the Silmarillion. For those that would like to see it, it's going to be about the Vala Quinta, or the history of the Valar. I'm going to go into each one of them and describe who they are and go into a little bit of detail about that chapter. I also plan on here in the very near future, if not this weekend, the next weekend, the next addition to the Elven Love series is going to be for the Elven Love of History. And I'm going to be going over the history of elves in this world from a Tolkien point of view, but also from a multitude of other countries. So we'll be talking about that. I think that'll be a great video, kind of a lengthy history on where we come from. Okay, so the religionizing of Tolkien. The reason I'm doing this is because I've been noticing some pretty hard liners when it comes to Tolkien. All right, that it seems to be the beginnings of producing a religion around Tolkien. And just as Jesus did not want that to happen, often it was said in the Bible, when Jesus would perform a miracle, he would say, no, don't tell anybody. Don't let anybody know that we did this. And of course, what did they do? All right, and I have a feeling that Tolkien would not be very happy that people are taking him way too literally, that they are producing a religion about him. So we're going to talk about that for just a little bit. As some of you know, I did a video about a week ago on the elven diet from my perspective. And from my perspective, I believe that elves throughout history adhere more to a vegan lifestyle, a plant-based lifestyle. I gave a history a little bit about that. I know that there were some who would love that if I had gone ahead and did some recipes on the on elven diet and elven food. Unfortunately, that is not well documented, and I'm not going to put fake recipes in to the videos. Simply said, in my view, that elves are vegan, and go forth and eat plant-based. If you want to eat like an elf, eat green food, eat like an elf. And I have lots of resources for those who would love to learn more about that. And you can also go to my other YouTube channel for Tree of Life Holistic Wellness Center, where I have videos on medical issues, and a couple of those are on nutrition and how to help yourself with nutrition. So please feel free to go look at those. All right, but this one is about people who are taking things way too seriously. All right, and that's a slippery slope that you can walk down if you're not careful with it. I'm seeing within the Elven community, you have vegan versus non-vegan, hunting versus non-hunting, high elves versus low elves, pixies versus elves, dark fae versus dark fae. People are choosing sides, and that is not what Tolkien intended. It is well known that Tolkien was known to say that he believed that what he was doing was recording history, not inventing it, that it came from old books that he found in Oxford and things of that nature. Old books in Oxford. Storytelling and storytelling and storytelling, and we all know, as I've said before in multiple videos, how stories change over the years and how they can alter. I mean, you have the Bible that has altered over the centuries, and as I mentioned before, if you read the Aramaic version of the Bible and you read the modern version, it's quite a different book in many ways. The same with Tolkien. It's a shame that it's happening in such a shorter period of time, where people are already changing what he said. All right, so again, It goes, I said, while I may express my judgment based on my research of the writings, like for example when I did about veganism, I'm expressing my views on what I saw. All right. I never insist that you must follow my path, nor is it a healthy thing to insist others to accept your interpretation, or else you will mock them. How in the world did people start doing this with Tolkien? It's not just veganism, it's hunting and so forth. And I make a point in a lot of videos to say, all right, be careful taking it literally. Okay, Tolkien did, similar to what a lot of others did. Jesus did, Buddha did, and others spoke in parables, told us stories. It's the essence of the story that matters, not per se the word. Did Galadriel exist? I tend to believe that she does. But even if she didn't, the story of Galadriel stands as an archetype for us, stands for what we could aspire to. I do believe that she does exist, but it's okay with me if she didn't, because it's what she represents, what we can manifest in our lives. And I believe that's what Tolkien is trying to tell us. Sometimes he tells us in events that may have actually happened, but very often I believe he told us in parables, trying to put forth a moral lesson for us all to learn. All right, a lot of this we can compare to what happened with most religions in the world. All right, I have traveled all over the world. I have visited many, many, many religions. I've partook in those religions. I've shared in them so that I could learn and understand their culture and be a part of it for at least a short time. I have never in my life, ever, seen any religion on earth that ever sustained the vision, that ever remained true to what the original author wanted of that spiritual belief to have. Never have I seen them hold the truth and stand to it. Every religion in the world has been persecuted. Every religion in the world has been a persecutor. So I'm careful about the word religion, and I see it happening with the Tolkien spiritual movement as well. My definition, if I were to give one of religion, is the bureaucracy of spirituality. All right, taking spirituality and putting a layer of bureaucracy or government around it, so to speak, control, power, and so forth. All right, let's take as an example the First Council of Nicaea. All right, that occurred in the city of Bethanian in Nicaea. It was in AD 325, and it is in large part why Christianity is as it is today. There was a big battle going on there. There was a sect of Christians that more or less they were called the literalists, and then there was other sect of Christians and they were more or less called the Gnostics. The literalists, obviously, they took everything literally, and the Gnostics took a more of a mystic approach to it. They wanted to, they believed in the message of Jesus. Not so much did they really even care whether he existed in physical form or not. It was the message that they believed in. They believed that to find and understand that message was through self-discovery, was through your own education and your own studies, your own scholarship to delve deeper and deeper into the message of Jesus. Whereas the literalist said, no, Jesus existed and this is the only way to salvation, and it had a lot more control to it. Well, this Council of Nicaea was basically put together by the Roman Emperor Constantine. It was a council of Christian bishops who all got together because they were very concerned. These were basically the literalists that got together because they were very, very concerned because the Gnostics were winning. There were actually at this time more Gnostics than there were literalists, and they couldn't have that. So the council got together and decided this was going to be the way it was. And whether Constantine wanted this or not, some say that Constantine wanted this to be a unifying meeting, a council, a synod, and ended up, I don't know whether that's true or not, because there's a whole history behind Constantine that was actually incredibly corrupt and was more interested in power. But anyway, the Council of Nicaea ended up causing a greater rift and more persecution, because now the literalists had backing, so to speak. They had truth on their side, and they went after the Gnostics and pretty much just about wiped them out or sent them off into hiding, all right, literally or taking it spiritually. the letter of the law or the spirit of the law. All right. I prefer to attach the spirit of the law to what Tolkien said. I don't prefer to take what he said literally. Now, yes, is it possible? And I do believe that some of the things he wrote about, like I said, are literally the truth. There's Manwë and Varda and Tulkas. I do believe they do exist. Okay. But the stories that wrap around them, we have to be careful of. The essence of saying that the elves went hunting, where the elves ate meat, and we talked about last time about meat according to the Middle Ages and according to the way Tolkien spoke, didn't mean meat anyway. But anyway, that's literal or spiritual. It's how you take it. All right, so as I said, I have yet to find a single religion in Earth's history that ever was able to remain to the original vision. So what I'd like to do real quickly here is to give you the 9 steps to creating a religion according to the Elven Scholar. Take it for what it's worth. All right, okay, and we can apply this to Tolkien, and we can apply it to where things have gotten since Tolkien's death in 1973. How much things have changed. All right, 9 steps to creating a religion. All right, step number 1 is we have an individual with a vision or a dream or a satori or some kind of inspiration which has so moved that individual to such a degree that it alters their perception or view of the universe and of life. It moved them so much that it changed how they perceived life itself. All right, so that was step 1. Inspiration, dream, satori, however you want to go about saying it. Step number 2, the individual tells his family and friends, hey, look what I've discovered. This is a truth that I did not know of, and it has changed my perception of reality. All right. Well, what often happens when you tell your friends or family of some new revelation? Right? We can easily go to, Jesus was said to have stated in Mark 6:4, a prophet is not without honor, but in his own country and among his own kin, in his own house. So what they're trying to say is, those that know you the best, they think know you the least. You have a revelation, those closest to you will be the least likely to believe you. So that then takes us to step 3. He or she begins to tell others outside of the family and friends, whoever will listen to this wonderful new revelation. They then go forth and want to tell others about it. All right, you get to step 4, and the word spreads among like-minded souls. It begins to slowly take on a life of its own, where once this individual with the dream begins to tell others, and then it begins to spread, and it begins to take on a life of its own, and begins to cover greater and greater territory, more and more people learn. And in a world like today, with the internet age, that can happen orders of magnitude faster than it would have happened back in, say, Jesus's day, or even back in Tolkien's time, back in when he passed away in the 70s. Information can now pass through the world in pretty much the blink of an eye. So it doesn't take long for a message to basically take on a life of its own. All right, then we get to step 5. The word, they meaning those who are spreading the word, they become more organized, all right, and start to write books and newsletters and websites such as today. They start having meetings of like-minded souls. We all start getting together like what we're doing here, and we start sharing the message, and we debate about the message, and we grow and evolve with the message. All right. Okay, and then we get to step 6. It is now a spiritual movement, because now there are classes and educational programs, and others are beginning to carry on the message just without even being in touch with the original group. The message begins to spread. It is now a spiritual movement. All right. Okay, so then finally in step 7, okay, the original messenger dies or leaves for a very long extended period of time. All right. Others take on the task of keeping the vision or dream alive. Then we get to step 8. All right. It comes to the minds of some of those that they can profit in some manner. Okay, increase in power, money, control of others, and the movement begins to splinter into autonomous groups. It can also splinter when a group desires to have a more formal structure, utilizing ritual and dogma as a way to support the belief system. I see this so much happening today. There are those that have splintered off because they can make a religion that can control the dissemination of the information. They can control how others will perceive this new religion. All right. But then there's also those with innocence in their hearts that say, all right, I need to splinter from this because I need something more formal. I need the ritual and the dogma. It is an issue of human history that people need structure. It doesn't have to be that way, but they do. There's an old story in the Bible where David, people back in Israel, they were all just believing in God. And then they said, we need a king. And God was like, well, you don't really have to have a king. We want a king. They wanted that structure. They didn't want to just have God. So God said, okay, I'll go ahead and let you have a king, David and Solomon and so forth. Okay, it seems to be the fate of so many humans choosing that as a fate, to want to have that structure, to want to have someone control the dream. Okay, that is the difference between a spiritual movement and a religion. Okay, religion, you allow someone to tell you what the interpretation of a writing is. Spirituality says, I'm going to take the ways of the Gnostics. I'm going to take personal responsibility so that from my own understanding that I will delve into the literature, into the scripture, into the writings, and I'll figure it out for myself. It doesn't mean I can't share with others and that we can't have debate and talk about it, all right, within a healthy adult manner or so forth. But spirituality says, I take personal responsibility. Religion says, I'm going to let someone else figure it out for me and I'll follow what they say. I know a lot of people may not like what I'm saying because there are some very honest and sincere religious people out there. But in general, this is unfortunately a issue with human history. All right, so that was number 8. And finally, last but not least, we have number 9. It is now, it has become a religion. As time goes on, and the original messenger has become a legend and eventually a myth, the followers of the belief system take the word literally. Stories are altered depending on the language of the time, and the vision becomes more and more muddied. Okay, it goes from being the spirit of the law to the letter of the law. All right, when Tolkien passed, this process actually started to begin, and we are where we are right now. We're having so many people take the letter of what Tolkien wrote, literally, instead of the message inside, the gem that's in there, that it was meant to inspire us to think for ourselves. What the Tolkien writings did, in my view, was it let us realize that there was something beyond what we see here, what we're taught, that there is a world beyond this one, so to speak, a world that we can create for ourselves, that there is magic in the universe, that there is something unique and special and elven about the universe that we live in. And the problem is that so many have forgotten. And what Tolkien did was to remind us about it. He didn't mean that his stories were to become, to be taken literally, but to help remind us of who we are and to wake us up and to inspire us to go forth and dig further. All right, Jesus said, those who come after me will do what I did and more. All right, so Tolkien started it. Tolkien started our awakening. Now let's go forth and discover and research and become scholars ourselves. All right. Because of religion, a lot of people, I don't know how many know this, but those who take things literally tend to bind to them so strongly that all else becomes a moot point. For example, the number of deaths worldwide throughout history that have been attributed to religious wars ranges anywhere from 17 million to 195 million souls that were wiped out simply for the cause of religion. All right. Okay. Here we have more and more people wanting to start a new religion for Tolkien. And it begs me to remember the Einstein's law of insanity. I just love this. He stated that where the law comes in, he said, it's the case of someone doing something over and over again and expecting a different result, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. No religion has ever successfully maintained the vision of the original prophet, so to speak, and I have no problem calling Tolkien a prophet. All right, and yet people think that they can go right back to the old ways, take it literally, create a religion. It never works out. It never does. All right, so as I said, there are approximately 7 billion humans currently upon this world at this moment. This means that there are at least that many paths or ways to seek the truth. If you choose to take something literally, well, that is your path, and indeed, that is your right. But let's be more tolerant of those who choose to take more of the spirit of the law and not the letter. All right. Take something too literally, and you may end up sharing company with those who use the literal interpretation of the law as a justification for doing something, whether that something was right or wrong. All right. So last but not least, and then I'll be signing off, I just wanted to make this a short one for you and give you something hopefully to think about. And again, we can share and learn from each other. And this is by a phrase by the Elven Scholar. When you peer at a rock and all you perceive is the rock, you may run the risk of missing the vein of gold within. Namadi.